All right, Emily,
All
welcome.
right.
Would you mind
Yeah,
telling us a little bit like those same prompts and just launching into whatever you got to say for us?
sure. Yeah, for sure. And I'll talk, it looks like, for about 15 minutes and really excited to be here and excited to have the conversation. And thank you so much, Julie, for reaching out, and to you and Kelly for organizing this event. Anytime we get to talk to one another about how to build the collective power necessary to make the world we want, it's a great opportunity. And so I'm really grateful to be sharing this space with you all tonight. My name is Emily Drabinski. My pronouns are she, her. I am calling in from Brooklyn, New York, where I just had dinner. Speaking of self care, pork and potatoes. My partner Karen is learning how to sous vide. I graduated from Syracuse University's online program about 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And that was an experience of profound loneliness. Julie, we needed someone like you to pull our online program together back in the day. It really was an isolating and lonely experience, although um, infinite flexibility, which was what I wanted at the time. And I am joining you both as a working librarian, as well as the president-elect of the American Library Association. So that is me. Um, I am going to share my screen after all, after I told Julie that I wasn't going to. So if you can make me a person who can share.
Yes. Did I not do that already, Kelly? Oh, sorry. No, I didn't. Okay. Wait, so hold. You got it. There you go.
Okay. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a story because I think that's helpful. So I've just got some images from a prior presentation. Let me see. Can I make this do a slideshow? Okay. So in 2016, I was working as a librarian at Long Island University's downtown Brooklyn campus. I'd been a librarian there for about 10 years. As a librarian, I had faculty status at the time. I uh, was totally good at my job. I was the coordinator of instruction. I had developed two programs that were sort of integrated information literacy into the freshman composition program as well as the sophomore seminar. I'd done a syllabus analysis in the School of Ed to figure out where we could intervene best for student learning outcomes. Like, I was good at my job. I was also active in the union, something that started back in 2012 when I joined the faculty at the end of a right when we were negotiating a new contract. And I'll be interested in sort of Q&A and the discussion, how many of you have labor experience. I knew that the unions were good and important, but I didn't have any experience sort of um, being a member of a union that was in the fight, right? So 2012, I joined the faculty there, and we are negotiating a new contract, and we go on strike. We go on strike for the things that you would organize around: um, money, right? Salary, and benefits, working conditions. Um, and we were out for, I think, only about 4 days. We came back, we signed the contract, and we didn't win enough. So I was very angry and annoyed and disappointed because we had gone on strike. I took a big hit in my paycheck and I didn't win enough. And so I determined that I was going to just run it, like like, if you are part of an association or organization or a union or whatever and it's not doing the things that you want to do, you got to just take it over and run it. And we can talk a lot about that. I'm really interested in people who just want to do the thing, which is why what I'm really loving as I learned about this group, what you all are doing, you're doers. So I'm working at LIU, it's 2016. I'm sitting at my desk and I get a call that says, Emily, because I was secretary of the union, Emily, so one of the people on the bargaining team said, it looks like they're going to lock us out rather than sign a contract. So in a strike, the workers withhold their labor to get management to bend. None of us are going to go to work, and you can't run a university without a faculty, so you're going to bend to our will. And a lockout, management does that to you. So rather than us withholding our labor, management fired us all en masse. It was right before Labor Day. We got an email confirming what my colleague Ed had said, that we were indeed locked out as of that Friday. So they told us on a Wednesday, as of Friday, no access to our email. We could not get on campus. Our salaries were frozen. We didn't get paid. All of our health insurance was cut off. I spent most of my afternoon in cancer care follow-ups. Had I had cancer during the lockout, who knows if I would even be there. Like, just truly cruel behavior. Just like, and for me, as somebody who's like good at my job and thinking that I deserve good things because I'm working hard, nope. That wasn't at all what was happening. It didn't matter who I was. It mattered what management wanted to extract from me. So the campus became unruly. So this is a shot of, so we ended up being out for 12 days. We organized and we fought back, made them let us back in and resume our paychecks and health insurance and continue bargaining at the table for a contract that we ultimately signed a year later. A lot in that I'm happy to go into if you want to talk about it, but I want to talk for a minute about what I learned in that experience. So this is a photo of our biggest rally during the lockout fight. You'll see this is it's been long enough now that I forget his name, the guy with the bullhorn. He's got Catherine's kids little league baseball bullhorn that she brought. Carlos, that was his name. And Carlos came out of the Bernie Sanders movement. He'd been an organizer down in Florida and then moved to Brooklyn and started going to school with us. And this, I think, is like what we imagine when we think about collective action, collective change, making a sort of moving the needle on things. We see this image in our heads of a big rally and a big protest. But this, I think, is where that rally got started. So this is an image from our health insurance sign up, or no, it was our unemployment sign up fair that we did for the faculty. We just determined that one of the sort of takeaways from me about organized labor stuff is you have to stick together, right? If they can't, it is just easier to pick off people one by one rather than if we come together and stay together as a mass. So we were always thinking about ways that we could get people together. So we're not going to be at work together. What can we do together? So this is an unemployment sign up. We invited everybody in, and all the faculty, most of whom had never applied for unemployment insurance. They'd been tenured faculty for 30 years. And they were like people not that great at filling out online forms. You know, I'm just being honest. Faculty often can't fill out an online form. I don't know if you've experienced this with your faculty where you're like, just fill in this thing and hit enter and they can't do it, right? So that was what we were dealing with. So the people that were, so there were 13 library faculty. We were the most militant people in the unit. We showed up every day at every action. We did everything that was asked of us. We kept total message discipline. We were on it. And we were the people who ran this unemployment sign-up fair because that was our job. We could just like help you fill out an online form. So when we're all gathered here, my colleague Syed, who thought that helping each other in a mutual aid type situation, which is sort of what this is, thought that was not like real politics or whatever. So he was like, forget your sign up fair. I'm going to go. He was mostly interested in this. He was like, I'm going to go to start a rally. So he's there, he's walking around with his picket sign all alone in front of the building on the sidewalk. But Carlos and his fellow students began walking out of their classrooms to join the fight with the faculty. They were like, forget it, we're not going to take classes from scabs. And he organized the students to walk out. Syed was there. He called, and we were all gathered a few blocks away. He called and said, the students are walking out. And because we were all together, because we had linked to each other through this mutual aid activity, when he called, we were able to stand up en masse, go to the school, and produce this visual and this experience, right? So when we're thinking about collective action, whether it's in a union context or any context, this picture requires this. It requires us to pull people together and stay connected and help each other so that we are ready to move as a group because we've constructed ourselves as a group. But this comes from this. When we are building power together, it is something that we can actually count and calculate. So one of the tricks, and I'm only talking for a few minutes tonight. So one of the key lessons I learned from this lockout experience is that if we want this, we have to get to this. But the only way to know who's even supposed to be in this room and to tell whether or not they've arrived, we've got to keep a list like this. So for the unemployment sign up action, that you'll see we had a spreadsheet of everybody in the unit. And so we can define a unit a number of different ways. And so our demand was come to this unemployment action. That was the demand we had for the sort of event, right? That's our ask. So we made it a spreadsheet of absolutely everybody, and we called them on the phone. Call them on the phone. Don't guess. It's not your best like sense of who the person is, but we call everybody on the phone. Are you going to come to the unemployment action? And then we would assess them on a sort of rating scale between 1 and 5. So you see over here, you've got the assessments. So my ask is, will you come to the unemployment action? Ones are organizers, people like me. Not only am I going to come to the unemployment action, but I'm bringing snacks and I'm organizing a bunch of people to call their friends and bring them to the meeting. I'm a 1, right? Julie's a 1, right? I don't know how, like for this group, like the person who's just like, I'm all in, let's go. On the other side are 5s. 5s are people who think that ask or the demand is not worth doing. And in fact, it's counterproductive and they're going to organize people away from doing it. So I'm a 1, and then there are 5s, right? We're the 2 poles. So in the lockout fight, or like the later contract struggle, when we were like deciding whether or not to sign a contract, I was a 1, Michael was a 5. Michael was organizing the no vote, I was organizing the yes vote. And those were the 2 poles. 2s are people who are definitely going to come to the unemployment action. Maybe they bring 1 friend. 4s, do that for Michael. And then the 3s are in the middle, are like, I don't know if I should go to the action or not, right? And we're assessing them according to this ask, right? And we only want to move when we know that we've built the power necessary, that we have a super majority of people who are going to do the thing that we're asking them to do. So I'm not going to hold the unemployment action, for which we also got press and media attention, right? I'm not going to hold it unless I know I can fill the room. So I don't know if you've ever been to a rally where like 2 or 3 people were there and you're just like, oh, that's kind of sad, right? You can only have the rally when you have the numbers to have the rally, and you can tell because you can count it, right? So that is sort of like, for me, the sort of, if I could leave the room with one sort of way of thinking about the world, this spectacular thing that I do think played a big role in moving the administration, because it was tough to handle the kind of negative press they were getting when they've got all the students out in the front, and this the faculty members and everybody. So in order to get to this, it's important to have a way of organizing and keeping each other thickly connected to one another, right? So we have events and we have asks, we have things that we ask people to do to keep them connected to the group. And the way we get there is by counting everybody out and making a list. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And it looks like I've got 1 more minute. So when we're talking about collective organizing, and when we were discussing this meeting in advance, like the idea, could we have a national archivist union? Could we have some way of building like a movement that big? And I think that we can, right? But it takes planning and campaigns, it takes lists, it takes a lot of one-on-one conversations and a lot of work to sort of keep people together. And it's really inspiring to be here with you tonight, because it feels like you've got a nucleus of that right here. And I look forward to talking for the rest of the evening about how we can sort of build on the energy that's here to sort of make the world we want, which sounds like a bumper sticker, but I really believe it. I believe if we all come together and demand the same thing, we could win. So I'll turn it over to you, Julie.
Very cool. Okay. I love that. I love those numbers. And especially spreadsheets, right? Because that sense of organization, and it is about people, but it's also about structure and like making sure that everything's kind of being tracked and that everyone's getting talked to that needs to get talked to. And so thank you for that. That was wonderful. All right.
I realized, yeah, sure. I realized there were a bunch of Missourians in here, so I just published this thing about library organizing in Missouri if people are interested. So I put a link in the chat because I think there's a lot of really interesting and cool work being done in Missouri around intellectual freedom. So I was asked to share some sort of tools for collective organizing, and I shared some earlier, sort of a discussion of the importance of a list, um, the importance of assessments, the importance of Jane McAlevey. I don't know if people know her work. Marco, do you know Jane's work? Jane McAlevey. Okay. She
Where
has a
is
book
she from, Emily?
called No Shortcuts. She is a labor organizer who she's a professional, so she travels around and joins different unions, and she spent a lot of time organizing uh, nursing home workers, I think in New Jersey. But she has a book called No Shortcuts that I think is the single best sort of storytelling that I've read about how to organize collective power. Then the book that I sort of got all of my knowledge from is called Labor Notes. It's Secrets of a Successful Organizer. I don't know if people know that book. So we don't have time tonight to go through all of the different tools, but those are two books that I would recommend that can give you a very Secrets of a Successful Organizer takes you step by step through how to build a union power in a campaign. And the tools that they talk about there that I guess I'll just sort of spend a minute talking about are first, the importance of thinking in terms of demand that we want to have. So I don't know when you all were sharing stories, if anybody talked about a sort of demand that you might have. So like, I think about like all of the things that I sit around complaining about, right? Like it's too hot in my office. I had this job where the dean of the library didn't want to turn on the scanner function on our photocopy machines for some reason that I couldn't fathom. It like had to do with like cyberbullying or something. It was just one of those management decisions where you're just like, are you kidding me? Right? The demand was turn that on. Labor Notes is always, they suggest always looking for a demand that is something that is deeply felt. I care a lot about it and widely felt, right? So deeply held, like I'm going to hold on to this demand for this thing that I want for the rest of my career. And everybody feels that way. So in this group, we're thinking about what is a demand you might have that would be a thing that you could organize around. So in the labor movement, we're like, okay, I'm always organizing around and against my against management, and I'm drawing on connections with the larger community who might support me in those demands. But I wonder if it's worth just for a second thinking about what the demands of a group like this one might be. Like, what do people want who came into this room tonight?
Maybe less precarious jobs in the library archival world. I think that's a widely felt, deeply felt
Yeah,
demand.
archives jobs should not be grant funded and totally linked to only that and time limited. And I can't build a life here because I am only here temporarily and I don't know where my next job is going to be. And as soon as I start the job, I'm looking for another one. Is that sort of right? Yeah. So that might be a demand. And another demand Joey puts in the chat, that you want equity in terms of who can work in archives, who's represented as workers there. Is that right, Joey? What do you
Yes.
mean? You want to say
That,
yeah?
and also,
Okay.
oh no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And in terms of items and materials collected also.
Okay. I want the field to both hire a diverse set of people to work in the archives, and I want them to collect diverse materials, not just white guy property records or whatever. Okay, so those are two like big demands. And those are the demands that we're going to have those are the top level things that we want out of our campaign. Okay. And starting with the demand and spending the time necessary with the group of people that you're organizing with. And it could be the people in this group. It could be the people in the Missouri in the Missouri SAA chapter. It could be the people on your job, the people in your community. Taking some time to talk through what the big demands are is the first start. And your campaign is going to build in a set of rising actions until we get to the point where we've reached that demand, where we've achieved what we want to achieve. So something like a demand that all archival positions, a demand that they not be precarious, that they be stable and full-time and all of those things, that's a big thing. But what kinds of steps could we take on our way to getting there? And that's going to take the creative thinking of like everybody, right, to come up with what those things are. Who's going to lead those conversations and pull the right people into the room and get everything up on a whiteboard and make some decisions? We're going to need to find some leaders. So one of the things that Jane MAC4EAP talks about a lot is identifying leaders. And for her, it isn't the person who was elected to chair the committee. It's the person that other people follow. So think about yourself in your own world, like who are the leaders in your world? Like you may know me as a library leader. My friends would tell you that I'm a natural leader who got them all to start smoking when we started college and to quit smoking 10 years later, right? Like once I started smoking, everybody was all in, and then I quit and everybody's sort of like, oh, I guess we're not smoking anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, are you that in any part of your world? Do you know somebody who is? There's like the person when she's like, okay, we're going to Tahoe. You're like, what? I don't even like the snow, but for some reason you find yourself in Tahoe skiing, right? Like those people. And remember, the list is all important. So don't think that person's the leader. You want to write them down. You want to make a list and make sure that you know who they are. And those are going to be the people who can pull other people together to do things. So in our campaign to like end precarity, we're going to have small steps along the way. Like we're going to get archival workers sort of classified as academic workers in sort of AAUP documents, or I don't know, like we're going to have to think about what that would be, but there's going to be a concrete thing where if we achieved it, we'd be a step closer, right? And that thing becomes the thing that we organize around. And Jane MAC4EAP calls them power tests, right? So I'm going to say, I need
power tests.
A power test. So I've got my list, I've got my planned action. Think back to the unemployment insurance sign up thing, right? Like it's a power test. Can I get everybody to show up for this? Okay. Because if I can't, I don't want to look pathetic and have just a couple of people, and the power that I've built will determine how far I can go, right? So if nobody shows up, then we're going to lose. So I want to see who's going to show up. So I called Danita on the phone. I said, Danita, you got to come. And Danita said, absolutely, I'm going to be there. And then I go to the thing and I've got my checklist and I say, Danita said she was going to be here and she's not here. And I make a little mark, right? And now I know that if I really want Danita to show up, and I need her to, because remember, I need a super majority of everybody showing up to these actions, we're going to have to loop back and call her. Somebody's going to have to go to her house and bring her, right? And we're counting that and tracking that. So if I can't get, 100 people to my rally, right? I can't ask 1,000 people to walk out and go on strike, right? So we're testing along the way. And it is very difficult to step out and do risky things like be public with your opposition, because you kind of get beat down, right? And so like I'm pretty brave, maybe Julie's pretty brave, maybe some of the people in this room are brave, but a ton of people who aren't, who are really quite frightened. And if I said come to the rally, they'd be like, I don't know, our gun's going to be there, and they won't want to come. So the other thing we're doing when we're testing power is we're giving people practice in dissent in ways that get them sort of more practice and better able to do the harder thing. So during
practice in dissent, you said?
Yeah, practice in dissent, like practice in taking a stand
Okay.
or being in
Yeah. Okay.
opposition.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So little things like everybody's going to wear the same button, you know? It can be scary to wear the same button, or it can be scary to wear a button, especially if you're all alone. I made these buttons, and I'm gonna get your mailing information from Julie, and I'm gonna send you a button. I got these buttons made that say Union Library Worker, and some others that say Organize Your Library, and they're giant and they're bright red because I'm a socialist. And like, are you gonna be scared to wear that button? I don't know. But if we're all wearing the button, it'll be a lot less scary. And so we're going to test that. So I think a mistake the organizers often make is they move immediately to the march on the boss's office, where we don't leave until they give us full-time positions. And like almost nobody has the courage to do that. You know, one of the things that was really like I learned in the so we end the lockout, we go back in, we keep bargaining, and they keep offering us these terrible contracts that don't look a whole lot different than the thing that we were locked out about. And so people are like, well, unless they give us more, we're going to go on strike. Like, okay, well, before we go on strike, let's see if we can get people to just like hang a poster on their door and sign this petition demanding a fair contract. And we like in the library, we had previously, when we were locked out, remember I told you we were like badass militants, like every single person totally tight, no deviation from the script. After we went back in and things started fraying a little bit, one of my colleagues, who I thought would never say no, refused to sign the petition demanding a fair contract. And she said, you know, I can't take the risk. I'm untenured. These people are venal and mean, and they're going to fire us if we sign this petition. So I'm not going to sign it. And it was really, really disappointing to me on a personal level. I thought we had a different, I thought I'd won with her and she was going to go with me. It turned out that she was correct, that in the next round of tenure, reappointment and promotion review, every single junior faculty member up for reappointment was non-reappointed, with the exception of the one person who didn't sign the petition. Now, was that the reason? We'll never know. But like, she was right, in some ways. But when we looked at who we were able to get to sign the petition, and we saw that it wasn't really a super majority of the faculty, we knew we could go on strike. Because if you can't sign the petition, you for sure can't stay home and not go to work, right? That's a big ask. So the other tool is to think long term about stages in a campaign where we're asking people to do things, we're building our courage together, because there's nothing it's like as awesome. I don't know if people have that experience of showing up to a collective action and being sort of swept away by it and being like, oh, there are a lot of us and we're strong together, like that feels really good. The right knows that they're producing all kinds of opportunities for extremists to get together and be like, yeah, I got that book banned, I'm awesome. Like, we need to be producing those experiences for each other sort of on the way to sort of the organizing that we want to have happen, right? So it's not like we come to this and I think Marco's spot on. I think that's the big issue, right? Is precarious work. Like, you get a degree in the field and you can't make a life. It's totally unacceptable. And better minds than mine have applied themselves to this problem. Did people know Sandy Rodriguez in Missouri? She's a dean there, and I'll send Julie a link to this. But she and some colleagues did a collective, sort of a collective power project specifically around archival positions, and she'd be a good person to bring to a future event for sure. She has a lot to say on that. But yeah, so what I do know is that it has to start in these smaller ways, and that are really about sort of piecing together and counting together the mass that's going to be required for us to make something big happen. And then there are all kinds of other tools along the way, but I'd like to stop talking. So yeah, Julie, how was that?
That was great. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I love that idea of, okay, here's the big goal, but what are the rising actions
Mhm.
I'm a storyteller. I'm a writer, right? So I think about how a plot works. And if you have to get to the end, like you have to have all these scenes where they go up and down, losses and wins, you know, and it's a crazy ride. But yeah, so thank you for that.